the Mavericks win. It's 4 straight. We've talked about it, how, Daniel Gafford might not ever miss a shot again. But I wanted to talk about the concept of how they match up against 5-out teams. Now, I want to go through that in case you're not, it can be said a lot of different ways. 5-out essentially encourages great spacing and provides offense with a lot of dribble penetration opportunities. There's no traditional center. And you might argue, isn't that a lot of the league now? Because you think of a traditional center as someone who stays closer to the basket. So if we can boil it down to this, if you don't want to say 5-out, how do the Mavericks match up against teams that have a center that can shoot? And that's what I want to look at, because I have some concerns. If you look at before last night's win, you beat Miami. They've got Adebayo and Bryant. Those aren't shooting centers. You look at Detroit. They've got Jalen Duren and James Wiseman, not shooting centers. Against Chicago, I know Vucevic can shoot threes, but the Mavericks didn't particularly put a lot of heat on guarding his shot. So my question for y'all is, how do you think this team will do when they match up with, whether it's Oklahoma City tonight, whether it's Denver in the future, with teams that have centers or people that play the 5 that can go out and take threes on you?
They have the ability to match up with anybody at that position, because you have 2 gifted, athletic, young centers who are mobile, quick. They can defend the paint. Yes, Dereck Lively needs to get stronger, and that'll take time. He's not built like a man yet. But I love the ability, because if I look at the Western Conference, you're going to have to go against a good center on almost every team. The only team that I can think of off the top of my head that I'm like, you don't have to worry about it, is the Clippers. The top teams. But you have, if healthy, Karl-Anthony Towns and Rudy Gobert on one team. You have the best player in the world in Jokic on another team. Chet Holmgren is a 7'1" guy who, obviously, what you just said, stretches the floor. But now you have guys, if they go into the post, okay, you know that Gafford is strong enough. I don't know if Lively's strong enough with a guy like Jokic, but you have a guy who's strong enough. If they stretch you out like a Chet Holmgren and they can dribble the ball, they're quick enough to stay in front of that guy. The other thing, too, is, look, what most teams do is they set a pick, and then the big guy has to guard the little guy, and the littler guy has to guard the bigger guy. So, but I do like their chances. I don't want Kyrie switching on to Chet Holmgren or switching on to Jokic or something like that. But you got to have defensive schemes that try to make that less likely.
And I was thinking of whether you want to say, Kristaps in Boston. I know that wouldn't be something that you would particularly worry about in the playoffs until the NBA Finals. But I immediately think of, like we said, the OKCs, the Denvers, even Golden State, because you can use Draymond when they run small as somebody who can shoot.
I guess the thing is he can't. You'd feel like 2 thumbs up when he shoots.
Would you go Vooch like right there? You'd be like, go ahead, knock yourself out.
Yes, I would. I think a successful defense is if you get Draymond Green to shoot a wide open 3. I think that's a successful defensive possession.
Okay.
I agree with you, Mike. We did have that weird during the, obviously whenever people see the Mavericks, they feel like it's time for them to have a season high. And we did have that in that playoff run.
Kevon Looney was Bill Russell.
He was making threes, and then Looney, if he missed, but Draymond Green was making threes. And then what that sets up for him is now if you have to go out on there, he can deliver a good pass. That's something that Draymond's very good at. So that became a problem for the Mavericks there. But I feel like whenever you have defense around the rim the way that they do, I think that's a benefit if you can try to funnel things there. And that's what the Mavericks on their championship run to the title. Now, if you're 5-out, if you are just refusing and you're making all your shots, that's problematic. But they got to make their shots too. And as the Mavericks, you have to force that. You have to be good on perimeter defense in order to make them say, man, we're struggling from outside tonight. We have to start going to the paint, and that's where the Mavericks can get their best feast. And then on the offensive end, I know you're more defensively focused here. On the offensive end, this is a huge benefit for the Mavs.
Because I do want to say this to Corey's point, and I'm glad that he brought that up.
Because the Holmgrens aren't getting after those two guys.
And I'm not concerned offensively about their ability to do so. I guess I will just have to say, at least at this point in time, Mike, I am more concerned about Gafford and Lively's ability to follow the big shooters.
I'm with you. And if you even look at the play-in situation, you could have, now he's not really a shooter. He rarely does it. Valanciunas for New Orleans. You have Anthony Davis for the Lakers. You have Sabonis for the Sacramento Kings. So if you do get into a 7-8 or 9-10 matchup, I hope they don't. You look at, there's going to be different options. Like the center is a real position in the NBA. Now, has it changed from James Donaldson and Mark Eaton over time?
And
yes,
Shaq,
for sure.
yeah.
But you look at it, there's premium centers in the Western Conference, and that's why that Gafford deal was such a great deal. And I give all the credit in the world to Nico and the scouts and Michael Finley and the people who said Dereck Lively Jr. is going to be able to play in the NBA. And I know it didn't go well at Duke, but I'm telling you, he's going to be good for the NBA. And they were right. And so now that you have two guys, this really helps out, Corey.
Kevin, I have my hand raised. Mike said Corey, so I'm going to go with me. I think this is another way that it benefits you on the defensive side, is that the offensive side exists. Now you make their center work. And Kevin, the league, as you were talking about, those bigs aren't necessarily great defenders down there, and they're having to work on the other end. That's going to wear them out. Now, what does that do for you? Because Luka can find these Daniel Gafford and Lively, because Kyrie can find them. Exum can find them. There are a lot of these guys that can find them. Tim finds himself. Tim Hardaway Jr. finds himself. But these guys can.
You make a fair point.
So what happens is now I'm going up from my 3-point shot, pump fake, deliver to my guy underneath, and I got points. Guys, you got to get down there and you got to defend these guys. You got to be in the paint. You got to be doing things. Okay, well, now I'm down there trying to do that, and that opens up a little more on the perimeter for better shots from three for Luka and Kyrie and those guys, instead of having to take these last-second things. And it wears down the centers on their end. Offensively, they're a little tougher on the other end. So it's a give-take. It's the natural flow of things.
One thing that I think is really encouraging, and Mike, not that everyone won't be pumped, but Mike, I think you especially will love this quote from Steve Kerr. But you look at the end of last year, or still this season, but the December 30th game, the Mavs beat the Warriors by 10, but it was 132-122 as opposed to 109-99. And one of the things that Steve Kerr said was, we saw Lively last time, and Gafford provides a similar dynamic. They have depth available to them for 48 minutes if they want, if they decide to have a big guy out there. It adds more depth to the spot that they already had. And then this is the key. They're definitely different since the last time we saw them with the trades they made. So not only are they different in there, that's encouraging, but you have Steve Kerr, in case you needed another basketball person to throw it out there and say, if the Mavericks want to go with your big guy for 48 minutes, they have the multiple options that they could fill it up like that.
On a piece of paper, this team looks right, the Dallas Mavericks. Will it all come together in the next 15 games and then for a great playoff run? I don't know. But on a piece of paper, what Steve Kerr is saying is they have the athletes for their wings. They have the superstar that can win a championship. They have the other star to go along with the superstar that you usually need for a championship. So I look at it, and I'm not saying that they're going to do better than the 2021 Dallas Mavericks. I'm not saying, 2022 Dallas Mavericks. But if you look at Kyrie, this could be controversial, but Kyrie's better than Jalen Brunson. Not by a lot, but he is better. And then I look at Gafford and Lively. I mean, I hate saying this, but it's the truth. They're 100 times better than Dwight Powell and Maxi Kleber as your center combination. We talked about P.J. Washington. He's on a similar level to Dorian Finney-Smith. Hell, I can barely remember, I guess Spencer Dinwiddie played a pretty big role. Josh Green is a better player than he was a couple years ago. So I just look at this and go, man, on a piece of paper, if they're playing at their best and healthy, they are a scary team come playoff time.
And then I have some, I guess you can quantify it as breaking news. This is pretty much what we speculated this morning. Mark Stein is reporting that Luka did not travel with the team to Oklahoma City, so he won't play tonight. I stand firm. I know, obviously, Oklahoma City is a badass team. I stand firm that this makes sense to me, is you played on Wednesday night, Luka stays home, you play again at home on Sunday. He doesn't play tonight. You get plenty of time to reevaluate. I get it that it's a concern that he's missing a game. I think this is smart, and hopefully, I'm sure we'll hear more from the Mavericks throughout the course of the day.
Is there any way, because teams can get fined in these nationally televised games, to sit out the major player? Is there? I did not watch the game last night. Did his hamstring really tighten up, or was this maybe like they were up by 15 points and they're like?
But here's the other thing: it also broke his triple-double streak, and so
he only had like 3 rebounds at the time. Is that right?
So he probably wasn't going to get it, but I do know that he can like the stats at times. I thought it looked like he was concerned, not like disaster, but he was concerned.
I would sit out Kyrie tonight too. I'd forfeit. I'd forfeit the game. I'd say, look, if somehow, some way, Jaden Hardy, Josh Green, PJ Washington, if they can win this game, that would be awesome. But if we're sitting out Luka, to me, we have a 5% chance of winning this game. Kyrie is a guy who gets hurt a lot. Sit him out. Let him have a night off too. And then get ready for Denver and get ready for the final stretch here and see if you can get the 5 or 6 seed. I guess the 4 seed's barely open. Maybe it could be with the Clippers situation. But I would just say, what's the point in wasting Kyrie's? He has a limited amount of minutes per year. And I just am afraid that Kyrie can easily play tonight's game and play in back-to-back games and then miss a week because his body is wore out.
I mean, yeah, Luka has kind of the same thing where his body, because of how much he puts out
Luka
there, you can just kind of expect every year he's going to have a certain amount that he needs to miss.
But it's not close to Kyrie.
I wanted to add this note, Kevin. 13 blocks last night, also a season high.
Wow.
Which is that. I mean, and that's something that we were just discussing with our center and what we have that not a lot of people have.
Yes.
This note is from Mark Followell here. They're 12-5 in the last 17 games, 9-5 post trade. That's like, I know that 5-game stretch. We were like, guys, we went back to what we were doing.
Yeah.
Well, they're still winning since the trade, but their paint defense is. Opponents are 53.9% on paint field goals in those games, the games where they've won. By comparison, they were 61% in the paint prior to that 17-game stretch here.
Okay.
And the league average is 57. So the Mavs are sub-league average in the paint against opponents, which is very, very good compared to being probably one of the worst in the paint before. So this is a great stat to add. Now that you don't just have Lively, and Lively as a rookie, you were like, man, is he going to be healthy enough?
Right.
So you go get Gafford, and he's young, and he's here for a while. So this is a great combination.
And to your point now, foul trouble, it matters, but it doesn't matter. All of a sudden, Lively picks up 2 fouls in 3 minutes, or 3 fouls in 3 minutes. You're like, all right, hey, he has 3 more, but we have Gafford who has 6 fouls too.
Yep.